The mist doesn't lift here. It opens, like a hand reluctantly showing what it has held. I stand at the edge of visibility, where moorland becomes rumor, and through the shifting gray, stone emerges. Not gradually, all at once. A keep, dark and certain against the uncertain sky. The year is 1310, and Scotland breathes differently in this fold of the Highlands. Thinner air, older cold, the kind that carries voices from battles not yet finished. My boots sink slightly into earth that has drunk rain for 1,000 years. Behind me, the world I know. Ahead, something that chose to remain hidden. The wind here doesn't merely blow, it speaks, in a language I'm only beginning to understand. And I realize, standing at this threshold, that some places don't wait to be found. They decide when to be seen. If you enjoy exploring forgotten places and lost centuries, make sure to subscribe. Our journey is just beginning. I have been walking since dawn. Though dawn is a relative term in these latitudes where light arrives not as announcement but as gradual suspicion. The Highlands unfold in layers: heather, stone, sky, then more stone, as if the earth here is still deciding whether to be land or mountain. My path, such as it is, follows the memory of a track, something worn into the landscape by feet that knew where they were going, even if I do not. The wind is constant, not fierce but persistent, like a question asked over and over. It moves through the heather with a sound like distant water, and it carries with it the smell of peat and distance, that particular scent of places where human presence is negotiation, not conquest. Above me, clouds move fast and low, their shadows racing across the moor in patterns that might be omens if I knew how to read them. The first indication of the town is not the town itself, but its smoke. Thin columns rising vertical before the wind bends them horizontal. Threads of gray against gray, almost invisible until you know to look. Then a sound, so faint I think at first I've imagined it. A bell. Not the grand proclamation of a cathedral, but something smaller, more urgent. The kind of bell that marks hours in a place where hours matter, because daylight is measured, hoarded, spent with care. I crest a rise, and the valley reveals itself. Not dramatically. This landscape doesn't do drama in the southern sense. Instead, it offers itself quietly, as if saying, "Here, this is what we are." The town sits in a natural depression, sheltered on three sides by hills that seem less like geography and more like intent. Stone buildings cluster around what must be the church, their roofs a mix of thatch and slate, dark with rain that seems to have just finished or is about to begin. Beyond them, higher on the eastern slope, the keep commands, that's the only word for it, commands the approach, the valley, the very air. The quality of light here is unlike anywhere else I've traveled. It doesn't pour or flood, it seeps, finding its way between clouds like water through stone. Everything appears both sharp and soft simultaneously, edges clear, colors muted. The greens of the sparse trees are deep, almost black. The grays of stone shift between silver and lead. Even the browns of turned earth seem to hold more than one truth. As I descend toward the settlement, I notice the details that mark human persistence. Stone walls dividing thin pastures, their lines running uphill with stubborn geometry. A grove of trees bent permanently eastward by prevailing winds, their trunks twisted like ancient dancers frozen mid-step. Sheep, their wool the color of the mist itself, moving across slopes in small clusters, their bells creating a scattered, accidental music. The path becomes more defined now, worn deeper into earth and stone. Others have walked this way, many others, over years that stretch back beyond counting. I can feel the accumulated weight of those journeys beneath my feet, the way the land has slowly shaped itself to accommodate passage. On either side, the heather presses close, and here and there, I see remnants of older structures. A tumbled wall, a scatter of stones that might once have been a shelter, a standing stone carved with symbols time has rendered illegible. The temperature drops as I descend. The valley holds cold the way it holds mist, closely, intimately. I pull my cloak tighter, feeling the wool heavy with moisture it has absorbed from the air itself. My breath becomes visible, small clouds that the wind snatches away before they fully form. The sound of my footsteps changes as I move from moor to something more cultivated, from heather to mudded track to, eventually, something that might generously be called a road. I am perhaps a quarter mile from the first buildings when I stop. Not because I must, but because something in me recognizes that I am crossing a boundary more significant than mere distance. Ahead lies a world that has chosen its own terms, that has survived by being overlooked, by being difficult, by being exactly where the larger currents of history decided not to flow. I am a stranger here, arriving in a year when Scotland itself is still becoming, still fighting for the right to name itself. What waits ahead is not merely a town, but a question. Will it allow me to enter? And if so, what will it ask in return? The bell sounds again. Closer now, calling to prayer or to meal or simply marking the passage of time in a place where time moves differently. I resume walking, and with each step, the town grows more real, more solid, more impossible to turn away from. The first dwelling I pass is hardly more than stone and hope, walls thick as a man's arm span, a roof of heather thatch dark with age and weather. Smoke rises from a hole in that roof, and in the doorway, a shadow pauses. Not a person yet, just the suggestion of one, a darkening in the dim interior that might be watching. I feel the weight of that gaze, though I cannot see eyes. In a place like this, strangers are not common. Strangers are events. I keep walking, trying to appear neither threatening nor lost, though I am definitively the latter. The track widens into something resembling a lane, and the buildings multiply on either side. Some stone, some timber and daub, all of them low and dark, built as if trying to disappear into the landscape rather than distinguish themselves from it. The architecture here is not about beauty. It is about endurance. A woman emerges from one doorway, a basket balanced on her hip. She stops when she sees me, and for a moment we are both frozen in mutual assessment. She is younger than her weathered face suggests, I think. The Highlands age people differently. Wind and cold and constant work etching lines that have nothing to do with years. Her dress is wool, undyed, the color of the sheep it came from. A shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders, pinned with something that catches the pale light. A simple brooch, but silver nonetheless. A marker of some small prosperity, or perhaps inheritance. She does not smile, but neither does she flee. Her eyes are gray-blue, the color of the sky between storms, and they take my measure with the efficiency of someone who has learned to judge quickly. Danger or harmless, local or foreign, worth acknowledging or worth ignoring. I offer a nod, a gesture meant to convey respect without familiarity. She returns it, fractionally, then continues on her way, her stride purposeful, her basket swinging slightly with each step. Behind me, I hear voices, not addressing me but aware of me, the particular quality of conversation that includes an audience without acknowledging it. The language shifts between sounds I recognize as Scots and others that are clearly Gaelic, the two tongues weaving together like threads in cloth. The rhythm is different from English, more musical, with emphases that fall in unexpected places. I catch words here and there. Sassenach, spoken with a tone that makes its meaning clear, even if I didn't know it. Outsider, English. Enemy, perhaps, depending on context. The smell of peat smoke is everywhere now. Thick and sweet and ancient. It mingles with other scents. Animals, mud. Something cooking that involves onions and meat. The sharp tang of a tannery somewhere upwind. A dog trots past, ribs showing beneath rough fur, pausing only to glance at me before continuing its important business. Chickens scatter from my path with indignant squawking, then immediately return to pecking at the mud, their small heads bobbing with mechanical persistence. I hear metal on metal, the unmistakable ring of hammer on anvil. Following the sound, I glimpse a blacksmith's workshop, its front open to the lane. Inside, a man works, his back to me, his arms bare despite the cold, muscles moving beneath skin that glows red in the forge light. Sparks fly upward each time the hammer falls. brief constellations that die before they land. He knows I'm there. I can tell by the slight adjustment of his stance, but he doesn't turn. His work is more important than curiosity. Children appear at the lane's edge, 3 of them ranging in age from perhaps 5 to 10. They wear layers of clothing that don't quite fit, hand-me-downs or make do, their feet wrapped in leather that has been repaired more times than replaced. They stare openly, the way children do before they learn the politics of looking. The youngest points at me and says something in Gaelic that makes the others laugh. Not cruelly, but with the pure delight of children who have found something unexpected in their familiar world. An older boy shouts at them, his voice breaking mid-word, and they scatter like the chickens before them, vanishing between buildings with the ease of those who know every hiding place, every shortcut, every secret their small world contains. The boy who shouted glances at me, and in his face I see the beginnings of the same assessment the woman offered. Wariness combined with a fierce protectiveness of this place and these people. He is perhaps 14 on the cusp of whatever passes for manhood here, and he wears that responsibility like a cloak too large for his shoulders. A door opens somewhere behind me, and I hear an old voice speaking, a man's voice, rough with age and use, the Gaelic flowing like water over stone, smooth and relentless. Someone responds, a younger voice, deferential. I don't turn to look. I am learning the rhythm of this place. Observation is allowed, intrusion is not. The lane opens into something that might be called a square, though it's hardly more than a widening where several paths converge. Here, the life of the town becomes visible in its fullness. A woman draws water from a well, the rope creaking through a pulley worn smooth by countless hands. 2 men stand talking, their conversation punctuated by gestures toward the hills, toward the keep above. They fall silent as I pass, not hostile, merely cautious. The silence of people who have learned that words can be dangerous, that who hears them matters as much as what is said. And over it all, the wind continues its ceaseless movement, carrying voices and smoke and the distant bleating of sheep, mixing them together into a sound that is neither quite music nor quite speech, but something in between, the voice of a place speaking itself into existence, moment by moment, breath by breath. Market day, I learn, is not a day but a condition, a gradual accumulation of exchange that happens whenever enough people gather, whenever someone has something another needs, whenever the weather permits and necessity demands. In the wider part of the square, blankets have been spread on the dampest ground, and on these blankets, the economy of survival displays itself with honest simplicity. Wool dominates, great fleeces recently shorn, still carrying the lanolin smell of the sheep they came from. Skeins of yarn in shades ranging from cream to charcoal, the natural colors of Highland sheep uninterrupted by dye. A woman sits with a spindle, her fingers moving with unconscious expertise, transforming raw wool into thread while she conducts negotiations with a customer over something entirely different. Dried fish, it appears, flat and hard as leather, preserved with salt that must have traveled up from the coast, precious as silver in this inland place. I watch a transaction, wool for oats. No coin changes hands. The 2 parties, an older man with a beard that reaches his chest, and a younger woman with a child bound to her back in a wrap of faded tartan, conduct their business with the seriousness of diplomats negotiating treaties. They examine the goods, discuss in rapid Gaelic, gesture, consider, eventually reach agreement. The oats are measured out in a wooden scoop, transferred to a sack. The wool is folded, examined for flaws, finally accepted. They part with nods, no smiles, but a sense of mutual satisfaction that transcends expression. Nearby, a man sells ale from a barrel, ladling it into wooden cups that customers bring themselves or borrow from a collection he keeps on a rough table. The ale is dark and cloudy, nothing like the clear beers of the South. People drink standing, talking in groups of 2 or 3, their voices rising and falling in the particular cadence of gossip and news. The same conversation, I suspect, that has been happening in this square for generations, with only the names and specific details changing. The smell of baking draws me toward a stone building slightly larger than the others. Inside, a woman tends a clay oven, using a long wooden peel to extract what I recognize as bannocks, flat, round oatcakes that constitute the bread of this place. The heat radiating from the oven is almost shocking after the constant cold outside, and I stand in the doorway perhaps longer than is polite, simply absorbing warmth. The woman glances at me, makes a decision, and offers one of the bannocks, still hot. I accept it with a gratitude that needs no translation, breaking off a piece. It is dense, slightly sweet, with a texture that speaks of grain ground by hand between stones. It tastes of earth and effort and survival. Beyond the market, the town reveals its patterns. Women move between buildings with purpose. Water from the well, food to prepare, children to mind, cloth to weave. The looms, I discover, are everywhere. In corners of rooms, under sheltered alcoves, anywhere light is sufficient, and weather can be excluded. The rhythmic clack of the shuttle provides a backbeat to all other sounds, constant as heartbeat. Some women weave plain cloth, the undyed wool that everyone wears. Others work with threads of color, vegetable dyes in shades of yellow and brown, and, rarely, a muted red that must cost dearly. Men return from the hills in small groups throughout the day, carrying what they've caught or found or cut. Rabbits, a small deer, wood for burning, peat cut from the moor in dark, heavy blocks. They move with the economy of motion that comes from doing the same tasks in the same landscape across years. No wasted effort, no unnecessary flourish. Just the work, done, then the return, then the rest before tomorrow's work begins again. The church bell marks the hours, though the hours it marks are not the regular divisions I'm accustomed to. It rings for prayer, multiple times throughout the day, calling the faithful to offices that structure time around devotion rather than commerce. Some people stop what they're doing and bow their heads briefly. Others continue working, their lips moving in silent prayer that doesn't require cessation of labor. Faith here is woven into the fabric of existence, not separated from it. I notice the way people wear their allegiances. The patterns of tartan, though subtle and muted in this northern place, still speak to those who know the language of clan, a particular weave, a specific predominance of one color over another. These are not decoration but declaration. Who one belongs to, who would defend you, who you would die for if the English came again, as they always seem to come. And they speak of the Bruce, the Robert who 7 years ago took the crown that Edward Longshanks said he could not have. The conversations I overhear, fragments only, my Gaelic being barely existent, carry his name with a particular tone. Not quite reverence, but something close. Hope, perhaps. The dangerous kind of hope that survives defeats and winters and exile. Time here moves by seasons more than by calendar. By the work that each season demands. By the light that each season provides or withholds. By the food that can be stored from one season to survive the next. I watch as an older man examines the sky with the attention of one reading prophecy, looking at cloud formations, at the flight of birds, at signs I cannot see, but which tell him everything he needs to know about tomorrow's weather, next week's work, the coming winter's severity. Evening begins to gather, though it is only mid-afternoon by the sun's position. Here, evening is less a time than a quality, a gradual dimming, a drawing inward, a preparation for the long, dark hours ahead. Fires are built up, animals are secured. Children are called inside with voices that carry across the entire settlement, mothers' calls that are both command and comfort, marking the boundary between day's exposure and night's shelter. And through it all the wind continues, that constant Highland presence moving through the town like memory through history, touching everything, changing nothing, simply there, witnessing, the way it has witnessed every moment of this town's existence. Every birth, every death, every decision to stay when leaving would be easier. Every choice to endure when enduring seems impossible. The elder's name is Domhnall, though I learn this only after he has spent considerable time deciding whether I merit knowing it. He finds me near the well as the afternoon light begins its slow fade. His approach silent despite his age, as if he has spent a lifetime learning how to move through this landscape without announcing himself. His face is a map of years, lines carved deep by weather and worry, but his eyes are sharp, appraising, missing nothing. He speaks in Scots laced with Gaelic phrases that he doesn't bother to translate, assuming either that I'll understand or that my understanding doesn't matter. His words are about the weather first. This is how conversation begins here, with acknowledgement of the power that governs all life in these hills. Then, as if testing, he asks where I come from. I answer vaguely, and he nods, satisfied by the vagueness itself. Specificity, his nod suggests, can be dangerous. There are places, he says, his voice like gravel shifted by water, that remember longer than people do. He gestures northward toward the edge of the settlement where the buildings thin and the moor reasserts itself. Beyond there, the old stones. I follow the direction of his gesture, seeing nothing but heather and the gradual rise of land toward a ridge. But his eyes see more than geography. They see time layered upon time, history written in ruins. Monks, he continues. Before the Bruce, before the hammer, before memory became reliable, they built there. Not large, not grand. A place of prayer in a place that needed much prayer. His pause is heavy with meaning I'm only beginning to decipher. Then came raiders, or armies. The distinction matters little to the dead. He tells me this in the matter-of-fact tone of one recounting weather patterns. But beneath the tone, I hear something else. Grief, perhaps, though grief so old it has become simply part of the landscape, like the stones themselves. The monastery, he says, was destroyed, burned, torn down, scattered. Some say Vikings in earlier centuries. Others claim it was one of the many smaller wars between clans, the constant friction of territorial dispute. A few whisper it was divine judgment for some forgotten sin. The stones remain, Domhnall says. Stones always remain. What men build may fall, but the stones themselves, they simply wait. I ask if I might see these ruins, and his expression shifts, not quite suspicion, but something adjacent to it. He studies me again, this longer assessment asking different questions than before. Finally he nods, a single definitive dip of his chin. Walk north when the light is still with you. Follow the old wall until it ends, then continue in the same line. You'll find them, or they'll find you. Sometimes it happens both ways. I set out within the hour while afternoon still holds enough light to walk by. The old wall he mentioned is easy to find, a line of stacked stone running from the edge of the settlement upward into the moor, its purpose long forgotten, its original height now reduced to waist-level undulation. I follow it, my hand occasionally brushing the stones, feeling moss and lichen beneath my fingers, textures of centuries. The wall ends abruptly, as if its builders simply stopped mid-thought, leaving the remainder of the sentence unspoken. I continue in the same line, as instructed, and the land rises gently, heather catching at my boots, hidden stones turning my ankles when I step carelessly. The sounds of the town fade behind me, replaced by the wind's constant presence and the occasional cry of a bird, a raven, I think, though I never see it, only hear its voice like something torn from iron. The ruins announce themselves gradually. First, a single standing stone taller than natural, shaped by hands though time has eroded the marks of tools. Then others, scattered across a space perhaps 50 paces in each direction. These are not the tumbled remains of cottages. These stones speak of something more deliberate, more significant. Foundation walls, low but clearly defined, mark out what must have been the monastery's structure, a chapel perhaps and adjoining rooms for the brothers who lived here. I walk among them slowly, reverent without meaning to be, feeling the weight of intention that saturates this place. Someone chose this spot for holiness. Someone decided that here, in this remote fold of the Highlands, prayer was needed and possible. I find carved stones among the ruins, Celtic knots, their interwoven patterns still visible despite centuries of weather. A cross, simple and bold, cut into rock that must have required days of patient chiseling to mark. In what might have been the chapel's center, I discover something that stops my breath. A stone with words carved into its face, Latin letters worn almost smooth but still legible if you know to look, if the light catches them at the correct angle. I kneel in the heather, tracing them with my fingers, feeling the grooves like reading Braille. Hic requiescit. Here rests. The remainder is lost to time's patient erosion. Someone is buried here, or was. Bones and stone have a way of parting company over centuries. The afternoon light shifts, that particular quality of Highland illumination that makes everything appear both more and less real. Shadows lengthen among the ruins, and I imagine, no, more than imagine, I sense, the presence of those who walked here when these walls still stood, when smoke rose from a refectory hearth, when bells called hours in a rhythm of devotion older than nations. Legend, Domhnall had said, speaks of manuscripts hidden before the end, books saved from flames, buried or secreted away, their knowledge preserved against some future need. I see no evidence of such salvation, but absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The moor is vast and secrets keep well in peat and stone. I find what might have been the scriptorium, a space slightly larger than the others, oriented to catch morning light, its floor still showing traces of flagstones beneath accumulated earth. Here, monks would have bent over vellum, copying texts, preserving knowledge, creating beauty with ink and patience in a world that had little use for either. The thought of it, men choosing this remote place, this difficult life, this devotion to words and God, fills me with an emotion I cannot name. Not quite sadness, not quite admiration, but something between them. Recognition, perhaps, of sacrifice made without audience, without reward beyond the work itself. As I turn to leave, the last light catches something metallic among the heather at the ruin's edge. I kneel again, brushing aside the vegetation carefully, and uncover a small piece of worked bronze, a clasp, perhaps, or part of a book binding. It lies in my palm, cold and solid, a fragment of the monastery's former life. I should leave it where I found it, part of the site's archaeology, but my hand closes around it anyway, and I slip it into my pocket. Not theft, I tell myself. Custody. Bearing witness. The walk back to the town occurs in gathering dusk, the ruins behind me settling into their accustomed silence, the town ahead beginning to glow with firelight and windows. And I carry with me the weight of what I've seen, not just stones, but the ghost of devotion, the echo of prayers spoken into Highland wind, the persistence of memory even after memory's keepers have turned to dust. Morning reveals what twilight obscured. The keep is not merely large but dominant, a declaration in stone that guards as much as it governs. It rises from the eastern slope like an extension of the bedrock itself, its walls built from the same gray stone as the hills around it, so that at certain angles, in certain lights, it seems to grow organically from the landscape rather than being imposed upon it. I climb toward it along a track worn smooth by centuries of ascent. Soldiers, servants, supplicants, all contributing their footsteps to the gradual erosion of earth. The path switches back on itself twice, a defensive feature as much as a practical one, ensuring that any approach is visible from above, that any attack would be exhausted before reaching the gate. The walls, when I finally stand before them, are thick beyond reason, 10 feet at the base, tapering only slightly as they rise 3 stories to crenellated battlements. Arrow slits puncture the lower levels at irregular intervals, narrow on the outside, flaring wider within to allow defenders maximum coverage while presenting minimal target. I have seen fortifications across Britain, but these Scottish keeps possess a particular character. Not elegant, not refined, but brutally efficient. They are built by people who have learned through hard centuries that beauty is optional, but survival is not. The gate stands open, though guards flank it on either side. They watch my approach with the professional disinterest of men who are paid to assess threats and have determined I represent none. They are older than typical soldiers, perhaps 40 each, their faces scarred, their hands resting casually on weapons that look used rather than ceremonial. Veterans, then, of the wars that have consumed Scotland for the past generation. Men who have fought for Wallace, perhaps, or for the Bruce, or simply for their own survival in a land where larger forces play out their ambitions in other people's blood. I offer a greeting in Scots, and one of them responds with a nod that grants permission without quite extending welcome. I pass through the gate into the bailey, a courtyard larger than the settlement square, bounded on all sides by buildings pressed against the inner walls. Stables, judging by the smell and sound. Storage buildings, a kitchen that sends smoke through vents in its roof. And dominating the far side, the keep proper rises, a tower square and uncompromising, its entrance accessed by an external stair that can be defended or destroyed as circumstances demand. The bailey shows signs of morning activity. A boy, perhaps 12, draws water from a well and carries it toward the kitchen in buckets that seem too heavy for his frame, but which he manages through practice rather than strength. Chickens scatter before him, pecking at spilled grain near what must be the granary. A smith works an outdoor forge, repairing something metal, part of a harness, I think, watching him work the leather and rivets with the efficient movements of experience. I climb the external stairs, feeling the worn hollow in each step's center, generations of feet having slowly shaped the stone to accommodate the human form. At the top, a doorway, surprisingly small, deliberately so, forcing anyone entering to bow, to slow, to present themselves one at a time to whatever reception awaits within. Inside, my eyes require time to adjust. Light enters through narrow windows, supplemented by torches in brackets along the walls, their smoke contributing to the thickness of the air. The great hall stretches before me, and I am struck immediately by the dual nature of the space. It is both magnificent and Spartan, grandeur achieved through proportion and necessity rather than decoration. The walls rise to a height of perhaps 20 feet, stone left mostly bare but here and there hung with tapestries that provide insulation as much as beauty. I move closer to examine one. A hunting scene worked in wool threads, the colors muted by age and smoke but still showing remarkable detail. Deer fleeing through stylized forest, hounds in pursuit, riders with spears raised. Not mere decoration but narrative, capturing a world where status is marked by the right to hunt, where skill with horse and hound determines hierarchy. The floor is flagstone, worn smooth and dark with age, scattered with rushes that release the scent of herbs when disturbed, lavender and meadowsweet, fighting the ever-present smell of smoke and damp. At the hall's far end, a massive fireplace wide enough to roast an entire ox contains a fire that burns with peat and wood, its heat radiating outward, but never quite dispelling the cold that seems inherent to stone walls this thick. Above the fireplace, weapons are mounted, swords, axes, a spear with a socket blackened by what might be blood or simply age. These are not ceremonial. These are tools, recently used, awaiting their next employment. Below them on the mantel, a shield displays what must be the laird's arms, a design I don't recognize, quarters and charges speaking a heraldic language I can read only partially. A lion, certainly. A galley, perhaps. Symbols of power and sea-born heritage. The Viking blood that runs through Highland veins mixed with Gaelic resistance, forged into something uniquely Scottish. The hall is empty of people at this hour, but signs of habitation are everywhere. Trestle tables folded against one wall, awaiting the next meal when they'll be assembled and laid with whatever sustenance this land provides. Benches stacked similarly, their wood darkened by countless hands, countless hours of sitting, eating, drinking, discussing the matters that determine life and death in this remote place. I climb a spiral stair in the corner, narrow, turning clockwise as it rises, designed so that defenders descending can swing swords freely, while attackers climbing must expose their unshielded side. Every element of this architecture is weaponized, turned toward the purpose of survival. At the top, I emerge onto the battlements, and the view stops me completely. From here, the valley spreads below in its entirety. The town appears small, fragile, a collection of structures that could be scattered by determined force. The moor extends beyond, rolling toward distant mountains whose peaks still hold snow despite the summer season. I can see the paths leading away from the settlement, north toward the ruined monastery, south toward wherever the next town lies, west toward the sea that must be 2 or 3 days' journey distant. And I understand. Standing here in the wind that never stops, what this keep represents. Not merely protection, though it is certainly that. Not merely power, though power radiates from every stone. This keep is a promise made in architecture, a promise that this place will endure, that the people within its shadow will not be easily displaced, that whatever forces may come from England, or from rival clans, or from the simple cruelty of weather and time, this stone will stand. A raven lands on the battlement near me, its black feathers ruffling in the wind, its eyes bright with intelligence that seems almost human. It regards me without fear, then releases a call that echoes across the valley, a sound that is somehow both warning and welcome, both threat and benediction. Then it launches itself into the air, wings catching the wind, spiraling downward toward the town below, carrying whatever message ravens carry when they leave the high places for the low. I remain on the battlements as long as the guards allow, watching light shift across the valley, seeing smoke rise from chimneys, observing the tiny figures moving through their daily patterns far below. And I think about what it means to build something like this, to commit so much labor, so much resource, so much hope to stone and mortar, to create a structure designed to outlast its creators by centuries. Faith, perhaps, or defiance, or simply the human refusal to accept that we are temporary, that everything we build will eventually fall, that even this massive keep will one day be ruins like the monastery on the moor. But not today. Today it stands, solid and sure, a testament to those who raised it and those who maintain it, a promise kept against the erosion of time and the ambitions of enemies. Today, at least, the stone holds. Darkness in the Highlands does not arrive. It accumulates. Light withdraws gradually, reluctantly, as if uncertain about leaving these northern latitudes entirely. The sky holds onto color long after the sun has disappeared behind the western hills, passing through stages of transformation that could be read as script if one knew the language. Blue to violet to a gray that is somehow luminous, and finally to a black so complete that stars emerge not gradually but suddenly, as if someone has pulled back a curtain to reveal what was always there. I walk the town's lanes as night settles, my footsteps echoing off stone walls in ways they didn't during daylight. The settlement transforms in darkness. Buildings that seemed distinct in sunlight now merge into shadowed masses, defined only by the occasional square of firelight from a shuttered window, by the smoke rising from roof holes, by the sounds that escape through walls never meant to contain them completely. Torches burn at intervals, not many, fuel being too precious to waste on mere convenience. They're placed at intersections, at the church entrance, near the well, strategic points where their light provides orientation more than illumination. The flames gutter and stream in the wind, casting shadows that move with unsettling independence, making the familiar unfamiliar, turning known geography into something that must be navigated with care. The temperature has dropped sharply with the sun's departure. My breath emerges in visible clouds, and I feel the cold working its way through wool and leather, finding every gap in my clothing with patient insistence. This is not the clean cold of winter snow, but the damp cold of Scottish autumn, the kind that settles into bones and joints, that makes old wounds ache, that reminds everyone that comfort is temporary and must be fought for daily. From somewhere nearby, I hear a voice singing, not loudly, not performing, just singing as one might sing to oneself or to a child being settled for sleep. The language is Gaelic, the melody ancient, rising and falling with the cadence of waves or wind. I cannot see the singer, but the voice is female, worn with age or use, and it carries in the still night air with crystalline clarity. The song ends, and the silence that follows feels deeper for having been broken. Dogs bark occasionally, their voices carrying across the settlement in overlapping echoes. Not aggressive barking, but the territorial announcements of animals marking boundaries in darkness, asserting presence, warning others that this space is claimed, defended, not to be crossed lightly. Then, just as suddenly, silence returns, as if the dogs have collectively decided the night holds no immediate threats. The church bell tolls once, not the day's regular call to prayer, but the single note that marks compline, the final office, the moment when even devotion concedes to darkness and the need for rest. The sound resonates through the valley, pure and singular, and for the duration of its echo, the entire settlement seems to pause, acknowledging the passage of another day survived, another night to be endured. I find myself at the edge of the settlement, where buildings end and more begin, standing at that boundary between human order and natural chaos. Here, the darkness is complete, unrelieved by torch or fire. The heather rustles in the wind, a sound like whispered conversation in an unknown language. Above, the stars are overwhelming in their abundance. More stars than I have ever seen. The Milky Way, a river of light flowing across the entire sky, so dense that I can understand why ancient peoples saw it as a road, a path, a bridge between Earth and whatever lies beyond. The wind shifts and I smell rain coming. That particular scent of moisture held in air, traveling from the west where the Atlantic breeds the storms that sweep across Scotland with the regularity of seasons. It will arrive before morning, this rain, and the town will wake to water drumming on thatch and running in streams through lanes already more mud than stone. Behind me, the town has grown quieter. Fires are banked for the night, burning low to conserve fuel, providing just enough heat to make sleep possible. Shutters are secured, not against cold alone, but against whatever the darkness might contain. Superstition here is practical, born from generations of learning that caution costs nothing and complacency costs everything. I hear cattle lowing from the byres, their voices deep and resonant, speaking of contentment or complaint in tones that transcend species. The sound is comforting somehow. These large, gentle beasts secured against the night, their presence representing wealth and sustenance, their survival through winter a measure of the community's success or failure. A door opens somewhere behind me, releasing a brief rectangle of yellow light into the darkness before closing again. Someone making a final check, ensuring animals are secure, fire is controlled, children are sleeping. The small rituals of night in a place where night is not merely absence of day, but presence of something else. Vulnerability, perhaps, or simply the reminder that humans are small, and darkness is vast, and the walls we build are thin compared to the cold that surrounds them. I turn back toward the town, navigating by memory and the scattered torches, my feet finding the path through practice that is already becoming instinct. The keep looms above, darker than the darkness around it, a solid mass against the stars. No lights show from its windows. The laird and his household have withdrawn into whatever comfort stone and fire provide, and the keep stands as it has stood for generations, guardian and witness, watching over the sleeping town below. As I walk, I imagine those who have walked these same lanes in centuries past. The monks from the ruined monastery, coming to minister to souls, warriors returning from battles whose names are no longer remembered, women carrying water, children running games now forgotten, old men taking evening air before age or illness confined them inside. All of them gone now, but the stones remember, the way stones do. Holding the accumulated weight of countless footsteps, countless lives, countless moments of joy and grief and ordinary persistence. Near the center of the settlement, I find a doorway recessed enough to provide some shelter from the wind. I sit, pulling my cloak tight, and simply listen. The wind, always the wind, moving through the town like breath through lungs. The creak of a shutter working against its fastening. The distant sound of water, rain-fed streams running down from the hills. A cough from one of the buildings, human and fragile. A reminder that bodies are vulnerable. That illness stalks these highlands with the same persistence as cold and hunger. And beneath it all, silence. The profound silence of a place far from cities, from roads, from the traffic of commerce and empire. A silence that is not empty but full of the land's presence, of the weight of time, of the sleeping community dreaming whatever dreams come to people whose lives are measured in seasons and survival, rather than ambition and empire. I close my eyes, and for a moment I am lost in time. I could be sitting here in 1310 or 1110 or any of the centuries between. The essential nature of this place hasn't changed. The wind still blows. The cold still penetrates. The darkness still surrounds. And people still gather in small clusters of stone and hope, lighting fires against the night, telling stories to their children, enduring because endurance is the only option, surviving because to do anything else would dishonor those who came before and those who will come after. When I open my eyes, the first drops of rain are beginning to fall, cold and heavy, promising the deluge to come. I rise, stiff from cold and sitting, and make my way to the shelter I've been offered. A corner of the stable, a pile of hay, a roof that mostly keeps out weather. It is not comfort, but it is enough. In this place, at this time, enough is everything. Dawn breaks reluctantly after a night of rain. The sky gradual grades of gray like layers of slate. I wake to find a figure standing near the stable entrance, silhouetted against the pale light, waiting with the patience of someone accustomed to waiting. As my vision clears, I recognize the shape as human, male, older, wrapped in a cloak that sheds water as if made of something other than wool. He speaks before I can, his voice carrying the formal cadence of one who has spent a lifetime choosing words carefully. You'll break your fast with me. Not a question, not quite a command, but somewhere between. An invitation that would be unwise to refuse. I rise, brushing hay from my clothing, and follow him into the rain-washed morning. We walk through lanes transformed by night's deluge. The mud is deeper now, running in rivulets toward lower ground, carrying with it the detritus of daily life. Ash, straw, things better not examined too closely. The rain has stopped, but everything drips, each roof a small waterfall, each stone slick with moisture that catches the slowly brightening light. He leads me to a building near the church, larger than most dwellings, built of stone with a roof of slate rather than thatch, a mark of importance, of permanence. Inside, the single room is warm, a peat fire burning in a hearth of dressed stone. Shelves line one wall, holding what I recognize as books. Not many, perhaps a dozen. But in this time, in this place, a collection worthy of mention. This, then, is the keeper of stories that Domhnall mentioned, though whether priest or bard or something between I cannot yet determine. His name, he tells me as he ladles porridge into wooden bowls, is Murchad, though he says it in a way that suggests the name is less important than the role he occupies. He moves with the deliberate care of age, perhaps 70, perhaps older. It's difficult to judge when a life has been lived hard. His face is more weathered than lined, skin like old leather, eyes the pale blue of winter ice, missing nothing. We eat in silence at first, the porridge thick with oats and honey, better fare than I expected. Outside, the settlement begins to wake, sounds filtering through walls, voices, footsteps, the eternal rhythm of work beginning again. When the bowls are empty, Murchad sets them aside and regards me with an expression I cannot quite read. "You've come seeking stories," he says. Not a question this time either, a statement of fact. This is what travelers do, though most don't recognize it. They think they come for trade or curiosity or simply to move through. But always underneath, they're gathering stories to carry elsewhere. I don't deny it. There's no point in denying truth to someone who has spent a lifetime learning to recognize it. He rises, moves to the shelves, runs his fingers along the spines of the books with the reverence of one who understands their value. "These Highlands," he begins, his voice taking on the particular cadence of rehearsed narrative, "have drunk more blood than rain in the past 50 years. You know the names, perhaps. Wallace, Longshanks, the Hammer, Bruce." He pauses on the last name, giving it weight. "Do you know what Bruce did 7 years past?" I know, of course. Everyone knows. Robert the Bruce, Earl of Carrick, killed John Comyn in a church, murder compounded by sacrilege, then seized the crown of Scotland against both English law and divine prohibition. But Murchad tells it differently. "He chose," Murchad says, pulling down a book and opening it to pages covered in script I cannot read. Gaelic letters formed with careful precision. That is what matters, not the murder, though it damned his soul by every law of church and man, not the crown, though he wore it knowing it would mean war without end. He chose Scotland. He chose to say that we are a people, not a province, that we have a king, not a governor. that what England claims by conquest we reclaim by blood. He returns the book to its shelf, continues speaking as if the words are being pulled from some deep well within him. This town, this valley, these hills, we are far from the battles. Bannockburn was fought elsewhere. Stirling, Edinburgh, Perth. The great events happen in greater places, but we feel them. Every levy that takes our sons, every army that marches past, whether English or Scottish, and demands food we cannot spare. Every winter that comes harder because the war has disrupted trade, because the peace that allows commerce has been shattered like cheap pottery. He pours something from a jug, not ale, but something darker, stronger. Whiskey perhaps, though the word isn't yet common. We drink, and the liquid burns with a heat that has nothing to do with temperature. Wallace, Murchad continues, his voice dropping lower, more intimate. They caught him in Glasgow, took him to London. What they did to him. He stops, unable or unwilling to continue. The execution of Wallace, 12 years past now, remains a wound too raw to examine fully. Hanged, drawn, quartered, his body parts distributed across Scotland as warning, as deterrent, as demonstration of what England does to those who resist. And yet we resist still, he says, almost wonderingly, as if the fact surprises him even now. Bruce fights on. The people, he gestures vaguely toward the door, toward the settlement beyond, toward all of Scotland perhaps. The people endure. They plant crops that might be burned before harvest. They raise children who might die in wars not of their making. They maintain traditions that conquerors keep trying to erase. Why? The question hangs between us, rhetorical, but genuine. He doesn't expect an answer, but he waits as if one might arrive from somewhere unexpected. Because, he finally continues, answering himself, we have learned that to be Scottish is to refuse to stop being Scottish. Longshanks thought he could hammer us into submission. That's why they called him that, the Hammer. He thought if he hit hard enough, long enough, we would bend or break. But stone doesn't bend, and we are stone here in these hills. We are wind and rain and peat and stubbornness. He shows me other books, manuscripts copied from older manuscripts, knowledge preserved through the patient labor of monks who saw beyond their own lives to future generations, histories in Latin, poems in Gaelic, prayers in both. One volume contains what he tells me are the lineages of local clans, carefully recorded, disputes over land and heritage documented with the precision of legal proceeding. Another holds medical knowledge, remedies derived from Highland plants, the accumulated wisdom of healers whose names are no longer remembered, but whose knowledge continues to save lives. This place, Murchad says, sweeping his hand to encompass the room, the settlement, the valley, perhaps all of Scotland, chose to remain hidden not from cowardice but from wisdom. The great roads don't come here. The English armies don't march here. And so we preserve what the larger world is trying to destroy: language, custom, memory. He tells me then about the monastery on the moor, confirming what Dominal hinted at. Raiders came. He won't say who because blame matters less than fact. The buildings burned. The monks died or fled. But before the end, they saved what could be saved. Books were hidden. Relics were secreted away. Knowledge was scattered like seeds, trusting that somewhere, sometime, it would take root again. You found the ruins, Murchad says, and I realize he has known all along where I walked yesterday, that in a settlement this small, nothing happens unwatched. You felt it, perhaps, the weight of prayers still echoing even after the mouths that spoke them have returned to dust. I nod, unable to articulate what I felt among those stones, but grateful that articulation isn't necessary. That is what we do, he says quietly. We pray where others prayed. We walk where others walked. We tell the stories that others told, adding our small voices to the chorus that stretches back beyond memory and forward beyond sight. We are temporary. The stories endure. The morning has advanced while we've talked, light strengthening outside, the settlement fully awake now. Murchad rises, signaling our conversation's end. But as I move toward the door, he speaks once more. You will carry this with you, he says. And I understand he means more than information, more than facts. You will carry the weight of this place, these people, this moment in time. That is what witnesses do. They bear the burden of having seen, so that seeing is not lost to forgetting. I step out into the clearing morning, Murshid's words settling into my mind like sediment in still water. And I know he's right. I will carry this. I will bear witness. Whether anyone listens matters less than the telling itself. That is what I have learned here, in this hidden place from this keeper of stories who guards knowledge against the erosion of time. The morning I prepare to leave arrives with unexpected clarity, the storm-washed sky holding a blue so pure it seems borrowed from some southern latitude, someplace where weather is gentle rather than weaponized. The light has a quality I haven't seen in my days here, sharp, crystalline, making every stone and grass blade distinct, as if the world has decided to reveal itself completely before I go. I gather my few possessions, such as they are, aware that I've accumulated more than I brought. Not things. I own nothing I didn't arrive with, but something less tangible and more permanent. Weight, understanding, the particular kind of knowledge that comes only from being present in a place, from breathing its air and walking its paths and sitting in its silences. The settlement is already awake, engaged in the eternal morning routine that probably hasn't changed in substance for centuries. Smoke rises from chimneys, thin columns dispersing in air still enough that they climb straight upward before the wind at higher altitudes tears them apart. The sound of the blacksmith's hammer rings out with the rhythm of work begun. Somewhere, a woman sings while she works, her voice carrying that particular Gaelic cadence that I've learned to recognize if not understand. I walk the lanes one final time, slower than necessary, trying to commit details to memory, knowing that memory is unreliable, that within days this place will begin to transform in recollection, becoming story rather than experience. But I try nonetheless. The particular way the church sits relative to the market square, the angle of the keep above the settlement, its shadow reaching down like protection or threat depending on the hour. The smell of peat smoke mixed with damp earth and stone. Near the well I encounter the woman who was among the first to see me arrive. She's drawing water again, the same basket on her hip, or perhaps a different basket indistinguishable from the first. She nods as I approach, a gesture fractionally warmer than her initial assessment, as if my days here have moved me from complete stranger to merely unknown. I nod in return and we share a moment of mutual acknowledgement. She understanding I am leaving, I understanding that she will remain, that this is her place in a way it will never be mine. Children play near one of the buildings, their game involving sticks and stones and rules that seem both complex and completely arbitrary. They pause as I pass, watching with the frank curiosity of the young, then return to their play the moment I'm beyond the radius of interest. Their voices rise in laughter or dispute, impossible to tell which, and perhaps in childhood there's less difference between the two than adults imagine. I climb partway toward the keep, not to enter, but simply to see the settlement from elevation one last time. From here the pattern becomes clear, how the buildings cluster for mutual protection, how the lanes follow natural drainage, how everything orients toward the church and keep as dual centers of spiritual and temporal authority. It's a pattern repeated across medieval Europe, but seeing it embodied here in this specific valley gives it weight that architectural description cannot capture. The sky above holds clouds now, building from the west, the brief window of clarity already closing. Rain will come again by afternoon, I suspect, the endless cycle of wet and brief dry that defines this climate. The town below will hunker down as it always does, and life will continue its patient persistence against weather and time. I see Murchad emerge from his dwelling, walk slowly toward the church, his gait stiff with age and morning cold. He doesn't look up toward where I stand, but I suspect he knows I'm here, that he knows everything that happens in this settlement through some combination of observation and intuition honed over decades. He disappears into the church, and I imagine him there among the shadows and stone, tending to whatever duties define his days, keeping the stories alive for another generation. Domnall appears from another direction, speaking with a younger man, gesturing toward the hills. probably discussing weather or animals or any of the 1,000 practical matters that constitute survival here. The conversation is brief, concluded with nods, and each man continues on his separate way, Domhnall moving toward the edge of the settlement with the purposeful stride of one who has tasks to complete before weather turns. I descend from my vantage point, making my way to the southern edge of the town where the path leads away toward wherever I go next. Several people are gathered near the last building. Not to see me off, I don't flatter myself, but simply because this is where the day's work has brought them. Still, there's a quality to their presence, a recognition of transition, of boundary being crossed. One of the guards from the keep stands among them, the older one with the scarred face. He approaches, and for a moment I think he might speak, might offer some farewell or advice. Instead, he simply extends his hand and I take it, feeling the calluses of a lifetime holding weapons, the strength that age hasn't yet eroded. The handshake lasts only a moment, but it carries weight. Acceptance, perhaps, or simply acknowledgement of shared humanity across the divide of stranger and inhabitant. I walk past the last building, and the settlement releases me as easily as it accepted me. No ceremony, no drama. Just the transition from inside to outside, from temporary belonging to permanent departure. The path ahead leads through the moor, climbing slightly toward the ridge that will hide the valley once I crest it. I walk steadily, not hurrying, not dawdling, simply moving at the pace of one who has somewhere to go without being certain where that somewhere is. At the top of the ridge, I stop and turn back. The town lies below in its natural hollow, smoke rising, life continuing. From this distance, I could be seeing it in any era, 1310 or earlier or later. Nothing in the view speaks definitively of time. Just stone, thatch, the pattern of human persistence in a landscape that doesn't particularly care whether humans persist or not. The keep rises above it all, gray stone against gray sky, and for a moment I see it as the ravens must see it, circling above, a fixed point around which the settlement arranges itself, a permanence against which human lives measure themselves. It has stood for generations and will stand for generations more, outlasting everyone currently living in its shadow, bearing witness in silence to births, deaths, wars, peace, the endless cycle of human drama played out against the backdrop of Highland indifference. The clouds lower, obscuring the peaks to the north where the monastery ruins sleep under heather. The wind picks up, carrying the scent of approaching rain, and I know my window for easy travel is closing. I turn away from the valley, facing the path ahead, and begin walking. Behind me, the settlement slowly disappears, not dramatically, but gradually, the way things disappear in mist. First the details, then the outlines, then finally even the suggestion of presence until only memory remains. And memory, I understand now, is exactly what Murchad meant me to carry. Not facts, not dates, not the technical details of medieval life in the Scottish Highlands, but this: the weight of a place that exists outside the main currents of history, that has chosen, or has been forced by geography, to preserve itself through obscurity, that continues ancient patterns not from nostalgia but from necessity, where people live and die and the great events of the world arrive as rumors, as disruptions, as forces to be endured rather than shaped. I walk on, and the moor embraces me with its vast indifference, and somewhere behind me, in a valley I can no longer see, life continues as it always has, as it probably always will, until the stones themselves forget there was ever anything worth remembering. Time, in the end, is not linear but concentric. I carry 1310 with me as I move through whatever year I truly inhabit, the circles of past and present overlapping, touching, informing one another in ways I'm still learning to recognize. The Highland town exists in memory now, but memory is not absence. It is another form of presence, perhaps more permanent than physical geography. I think often of Murchad's words about being stone. Scotland, he said, is stone, and stone does not bend. But I've come to understand there's more to it than simple resistance. Stone endures not through rigidity, but through acceptance. Acceptance of weather, of time, of the patient erosion that will eventually reduce mountains to dust. Stone doesn't fight its fate. It simply takes longer to succumb than anything else. The people I met in that hidden valley were stone in human form. Not unyielding but enduring, not unchanging but slow to change. Rooted in a landscape that had shaped them across generations the way wind shapes trees, bending without breaking, adapting without surrendering. They had learned what the stone had always known. Survival is not about winning, but about refusing to be erased. I think of the monastery ruins, scattered across the moor like prayers interrupted mid-sentence. Those monks chose that remote place for devotion, building something that they must have known was vulnerable, that raiders or weather or simple time would eventually unmake. Yet they built it anyway, carved their crosses and Celtic knots anyway, copied their manuscripts anyway, because the work itself was the point, not its permanence. They understood what we keep forgetting, that everything we make is temporary, but the making still matters. The keep stands above the valley, and will stand long after everyone who lived in its shadow during my visit has returned to Earth. It will stand through wars and peace, through changing dynasties and shifting borders, through the slow transformation of Scotland from battlefield to nation. But the keep is not the story. The keep is merely the witness, the silent observer of stories enacted in its presence. The true narrative is the people, the blacksmith hammering metal, the women at their looms, the children playing games whose rules will be forgotten, the elders keeping stories alive through sheer determination. Memory is a form of resurrection. Those monks at the monastery, centuries dead, are alive again each time I recall the stones they shaped. The guard at the keep gate, the woman with the basket, the children in the lane, all of them continue in this telling, granted a kind of immortality through witness. Not the grand immortality of heroes and kings, but the quieter permanence of having been seen, acknowledged, remembered. I understand now why Murchad showed me those books, those carefully preserved manuscripts. They were not merely records but acts of faith. Faith that knowledge matters, that stories matter, that the patient work of preservation across generations has value beyond immediate utility. In a world where armies burn monasteries and conquerors try to erase languages and empires claim the right to determine what history remembers, the simple act of writing things down, of teaching them to the next generation, of keeping traditions alive becomes a form of resistance. The Scottish Highlands taught me about scale. From any given moment, looking forward or back, human life seems brief, individual effort seems futile, but pull back far enough, and the accumulated persistence of generations becomes visible. The landscape itself is testimony. Those stone walls climbing impossible slopes, those paths worn deep into rock, those ruins that remain ruins rather than disappearing completely. Each represents countless small decisions to continue, to rebuild, to maintain, to pass on. I carry that bronze fragment from the monastery still, the piece of worked metal I found among the heather. It serves as reminder, as anchor, as proof that I didn't imagine that place, those people, that moment suspended between past and present. Sometimes I take it out and hold it, feeling the weight of it, the cold of metal that has lain in earth for centuries. And I am transported back to that valley, that moor, that quality of light that exists nowhere else. The wind that blows across the Scottish Highlands blows across all places, across all times. It carried the voices of Picts and Romans, of Vikings and Gaels, of Wallace and Bruce, of the nameless thousands who lived and died without troubling history's record. It carries them still, if you know how to listen. Not as ghosts, but as resonance, as the accumulated weight of all those lives pressing against the membrane between past and present, reminding us that we are not the first to struggle, to endure, to find meaning in the small daily acts that constitute a life. I learned in that hidden town that obscurity is not failure. The great battles were fought elsewhere. The famous names made their marks in other places. But the essential work of being human, of making, building, loving, remembering, happened there as surely as it happened in Edinburgh or London, or any place history bothers to record. Perhaps more purely even, unburdened by the weight of significance, free to simply be. The year 1310 is gone, as all years go. The people I met are dust, as all people become. The valley continues, and the keep stands, and the moor spreads its heather beneath whatever sky the present moment provides. But something remains. Not physical, not measurable, but real nonetheless. The weight of witness, the burden of having seen, the responsibility of carrying forward. Murchad told me that stories endure longer than stone, and I doubted him then. Stone seemed so permanent, so certain, but I understand now. Stone crumbles eventually, given enough time. Every castle becomes a ruin. Every wall returns to scattered rocks. Every monument to human ambition eventually lies down and surrenders to gravity and weather. But stories are different. Stories live in the telling and retelling, adapting, changing, continuing. The monks who died at the monastery live in my telling of them. The town lives in this recollection. And one day, when I too am gone, perhaps someone will hear or read these words and the town will live again, granted another moment of presence in a mind that hadn't known it existed. This is what travel gives us, if we allow it. Not merely a change of scenery, but a change of understanding. Not escape from ourselves, but a deepening of self through encounter with other selves, other ways of being, other solutions to the fundamental problems of existence. That Highland town asked nothing of me, gave me nothing I could carry away in tangible form, yet gave me everything that matters. Perspective, humility, connection to something larger and longer than my own brief arc through time. I will not return to that valley. Perhaps it doesn't exist anymore, or exists so changed that return would be disappointment rather than reunion, or perhaps it continues exactly as it was, waiting in its remote fold of the Highlands for the next traveler who stumbles across it, who is granted the same temporary belonging I experienced, who carries away the same weight of witness. But whether I return physically or not doesn't matter. I return constantly in memory, walking those lanes, hearing that wind, smelling that peat smoke, feeling that cold. The journey never truly ends. It simply continues in different form. The miles replaced by recollection, the physical path replaced by the path of mind, wandering back to that moment when mist parted and stone emerged, and a world revealed itself that had been there all along, waiting patient as stone, present as wind, enduring as the human refusal to be forgotten. If this journey moved you, don't forget to subscribe and join me on the next voyage through forgotten worlds.